Okay, now we're recording. Okay, Emily, first of all, I will ask you what questions would you have? I have noticed that people started uploading assignment 2 on LearnLine, which is just great.
Yeah, I've noticed like a lot of people are using the lesson templates. So is that what you would like us to do on our PowerPoint, or could I just write it how I would run the lesson and not put it in a template?
What do they do? But I didn't say. What do they do?
Did you want us to use the lesson templates in the assignment on the PowerPoint?
A lesson template. My lesson template or school's lesson template?
Whichever one, or like I know you can get lesson templates from other units. So I just wondered if we needed to use one or if we could just put it in.
I think that I am not interested in formalities as much as I'm interested in quality. So we might. You wouldn't believe it, but this PowerPoint today, when I uploaded it, it doubled itself. I've got 2 of them online. So never mind. Okay, well, first of all, since I'm recording, I might just answer your question basically through our lesson, because it's not the template. I mean, if someone says to me, should we have a template, by all means, have any template. It's the content. It is not a description of a lesson. It is an illustration that if someone else were to use or read your sequence, they would be able actually to perform the lesson. So the resources are there, the games are identified. So if, for example, you do in the part of your sequence where you engage children and you do the, for example, let's assume that you use my model and there is the what people do sequence, and I would like to see what kinds of videos or what kinds of books or what kinds of features you will show to children, or you will engage children in exploration. I don't want just a plain abstract statement. This will be an engagement phase where children will explore blah. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, but I don't even know whether you know what the blah is. So what would you be using? Do you see what I'm saying? I want content.
Yeah.
Abstract is all right, but abstract, if someone just writes in abstract terms without showing me that they actually found resources, so they knew what will be a good thing to compare against what, then that's just a pass. Because I can see that the student did the work, but not enough of detail to make me feel confident that they, when they are on their own in schools, that they will be able to actually identify the correct resources. I'll just make one more point. Very often when in schools, people just think that they don't have to exercise leadership because they are little. I'm just only in my first year. Well, my view is that you do exercise leadership, just like you do in any context, by simply, you might take a step back to see what other people do and what's the culture of school. But the leadership is actually about bringing the skills from university and seeing how you can work with those or integrate them in the culture of the school. And I'm working with these schools in Darwin, and I have to say that the teachers and the principal are very keen. The principals, because I'm working with a few of them, the principals are very keen in diversity, in thinking how to do things better. So they are fully aware that there is such a thing like professional development. So unless we develop some ground or foundations here at in this unit, and you show it through your assignment, I cannot believe that an abstract statement, or just make students compare things, that I actually know how students will be able to actually find these things when in a real life situation. Because it's not easy. I've spent all my life, well, not all my life, a large chunk of my life looking for resources, and I have created a number of databases, one of them on the Education Hub that you have seen. But if you go on the website called broadbandforseniors.com.au, it's also my website where I collected resources for seniors, how to teach seniors with online games, because online games have proven to have a lasting effect on cognitive skills of all the people.
Sorry, what was that website again?
The other one, that one is the Education Hub that you all have access to, because and the other one is broadbandforseniors.com.au. So I've been collecting resources as long as I remember, different ones. A lot of resources on Broadband for Seniors are no longer working because they have just simply died out. Countries don't support them. There were wonderful databases of multilingual databases created by European Union, and for some reason they are no longer supported, but the links are there. So I've been doing things forever, so what I'm saying is I appreciate how hard it is to find appropriate resources. That's why I want to see them in assignments. So Emily, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, so we just go through the whole thing. There are particular things I have in my memory, like this one. It's not me. I didn't produce this template. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
These things are floating. These graphs are floating among the literacy people in our university. So I grabbed it and I thought I would put it in. The fault of these squares is that you can see that each square links to another square and vice versa. That's kind of dyslexic. How can I put it? I cannot think of a different way. It's not a good way to have a graph where everything links to everything, therefore we can't see how things actually relate to one another. We can say that they all support each other, then you might as well just have a list. I mean, if one wants to create a graph where there is no organization, then you might as well just have a list. So I suggest to use it, because I never throw out human labor. I think that there are a lot of good things done by people, not necessarily always in the best way, but that's what life is. It's never the best. It's always the next step. So there are interesting, I would treat this graph, which I included on one of the modules. I think it's in module 4. And there are some nice words here, like motivation, attention, auditory processing, rhyming, syllables, blending, segmenting, phoneme manipulation, listening to vocabulary. Well, it's always listening to vocabulary. For some reason, when a linguist produces something like this, it's always listening to the vocabulary, but never mind. Word structures, and so on. What I'm thinking is for our students, when you think of creating activities and you run out of steam, why not just run through this graph and see whether any of that can jot your memory or make you sort of a bit more creative. Because at each stage, in each of these exploratory stages, which is the engagement, exploration, and evaluation of what to do, children need some activities to actually make them see what people do in more than one way. So they can actually observe those activities in more than one way. Did you look at that? Did you look at that? Did you click on that? What do you think? And so on. And if you look here, look what happened. And if you look here, look what happens. So it would be good to have a number of statements or a number of attention drawers for teachers to actually think what else they can look at in order to generate particular emotions in children or particular attention, points of focus. So let me have a look at the next one. Now I was looking through the curriculum. There's a heap of stuff there, and I couldn't. I mean, you know how, Emily, how everybody teaches the matching of letters with sounds. And I'm reading this curriculum over and over, and I thought to myself, I can't remember that matching was anywhere. And I read it and read it and read it, and you know where matching actually appears in curriculum in year 1? Right at the end. Manipulate sound in spoken words, recognize sound letter matches, understand the variability of sound letter matches. 3 little points at the end of the whole list of outcomes in the curriculum for year 1. And yet, when I often look at students' work, not in this unit, but in some other units, this is like just the majority of all the activities. Would you agree? And yet there's so much.
Yeah, it's huge in the school that I'm working in.
I mean, there's so much. Use interaction skills of this, have a look whether you can recognize this, see whether you can tell the differences, check how you can actually distinguish different emotions, see whether you can, with different people, use different forms of language, blah, 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 blah. And I couldn't even find any. I started to get worried. So like 80% is everything other than matching sounds and letters. Not 80, pardon me, 90% is everything other than that. That should tell us something. And then what else? I'm just thinking that maybe today we'll have a shorter session, but basically look at this. I'm thinking that. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm not very happy with this organization here. So, but this I'm treating as a list. So I'm thinking, well, you know, I like order. I do. It pays off to have order around you. So I'm thinking, if we divided the entire sequence of 5 lessons, and it doesn't mean that it's the entire unit of work, it's just a sequence of 5 lessons. It doesn't have to be a complete unit of work. But it has to be well-designed 5 lessons, that's all. And if we actually understand that the beginning is about exploration, then engaging children in a dialogue with others, which is creating, and then sharing by saying to children, now perform, send it to people, make it share, make it for them as possible to evaluate, see what they will say. So that's an order. Dialogue, creating, sharing. That's one order. And there's 3 phases of engagement, which is engagement, exploration, and evaluation, what, why, and how. It should be repeated through the next lessons as well, but in order to directly support students' creativity. But then when it comes to organization of the lessons, it looks like little human beings. What I would like to see in the template is the relationships. Very often students start writing the lesson sequences or their lessons at this very low level. So when I actually open someone's lesson 1, all I can see is here we will be matching sentences. We'll be telling the difference between the verb and the noun. We will be looking for commas. I can't see any relationship between that and the higher order skills. So what I was trying to achieve through today is to maybe address this issue, which is see what your higher order skills are for the engagement and also for the part of creating things. So you want people to, the first higher order skill is always, you want students to explore in order to evaluate and in order to create, right? So that's the whole thing. These are the higher order skills, and doing it in teams. And maybe also each team doing different things sometimes, so that they can actually engage with one another to get information from one another. Or if it is not across teams, then at least within the group. So it's about engaging one another for getting more information this way. And then what would be nice to actually explicate each lesson, which is the what, why, and how. Or sorry, just the what was repeated. The what, why, and how. The what, why, and how. I didn't actually change the slide and the text. So the what, why, and how would be nice to each of those lessons to actually explicate in lower level skills, so that I can see how each of the higher order skills in this particular lesson is articulated in lower order skills. And then, therefore, I can see that the lesson makes sense. Because I can see if we want children here to explore, that's what we call an exploration phase, or evaluation or engagement phase. But if we want children to explore particular things, then the lower order skills will be the things you will want children to explore in order for them to see what is it that people do. Right? So the objective is to show to children what people do, not to train children to anything yet, or ever. So that's the thing. That's the kind of organization of the lesson plan, of the whole unit, of the whole sequence. It doesn't happen very often. It's done in faith, but if I can see how things work with one another, how they relate to one another, then I can see the logic of the plan. What do I have here? Emily, do you understand?
Yeah, definitely.
You do? Yeah, that's cool. What did I want to ask now? If we were Emily, okay, before I ask you this question, maybe I can ask you a different question. In relation to this kind of connection, which I want what, why, and how in different, could you think of what skills, what exact skills, like for example, if we went to the language skills, in the area of what? Like if you want children to engage children and you want to show them what people do, because you are thinking, well, maybe we could, the final project I would want children to do would have to do something with using rhyme, either in a poster or in a poem or whatever, in different texts, so that children could explore creatively their own understandings of how different, not just genre, but language tools, what effect they have, and how can they play creatively with this effect. Because typically a poster can have just a picture or can just say don't smoke, but children can actually play with posters and say, oh no, we want the rhyme there. Woolworths shouldn't be just a sign of Woolworths, it should be something funny. So it is about teaching children to subvert. Children are very creative, and we don't want to kill it. We don't want them to actually slot into the society. We want them to slot out. We want them to actually be the drivers of the good things that are to happen. And for that, say that we would like to create a sequence of lessons that support children in creatively using the language tools. So we might actually show them that people use different language tools for different impact, like we did in other lessons. So, and it is all global yet, but because it's global, it doesn't mean that I'm talking about whole language or whatever it is. We start with communication. It's not about whole language or whatever. I never understood those terms. as opposed to what part language. It is about focusing everything on communication and effects. So what kinds of structures and tools create what effect? And therefore the question is different. It's not about forcing children to recognize words, but it's about, okay, how people do this. Why do they do it? Why there is no rhyme? Why there isn't any rhyme? Why there isn't any rhyme in the poster? Emily, do you know why posters don't have rhymes? What do you think? I mean, there is no right answer. This is just about being innovative and guessing, and kids will believe you. They will make up the answer. But what do you think? Posters very often don't have a rhyme. Why do you think?
Maybe they want to be a bit more serious, so they're not making it fun. They just want it, like a no smoking. They want you to pay attention to it. They don't want it to be funny.
Exactly. So that's one answer. And for that you look for proofs. And then you say, look at that, look at those. Don't tell them the answer, but you show them those posters that actually are evidence of that guess. Right? And then you think to yourself, well, actually, maybe that's because, so that was your answer, and show them the evidence. That's what exploration is. Thinking out for yourself an answer, looking for evidence and showing to them, look at this, what do you think? Why do you think? And then find another evidence, and the other evidence you can create. Take the same poster. It doesn't have to be about smoking, because you don't want to put this idea in little children's heads, but something else of that kind. Let's use the word non-smoking because I can't think of a different poster. So put a poem there. Just make it up. I mean, you can make up a poem, right? We can steal a poem from somewhere or make up a poem and put it up there and say to children, is it all right? Is it the same effect? How does it feel now? If I put it on the, and kids are starting to, so where should this poster be? On the wall. So where is the impact better? If it has no words or little words, or if it has a poem, what would be a better impact? Probably less words. Why? Because people don't have time to read. Yeah, it's too long. Sometimes, we can play with it. So when kids create a poster with the poem, they will think of making, or with the rhyme, they'll think of making it short, really short. Right, like 2 words. But rhyme, that's it. Sometimes it just says it all. It's funny. So that's what I'm saying by exploration. Exploration is exactly that, inventing a reason, looking for the evidence, and creating and putting it up to children to actually explore and see the communicative differences that different tools generate. And it doesn't mean that that's how the world is or has to be. It's just how people did it. And children can now creatively respond to it with in their own groups, creating their own, some of them posters, some of them something else, while still might be using rhyme. So we're doing rhymes this 5 weeks or 5 lessons. So if we were to look, Emily, let's play a little bit. If we were to look at these outcomes here, how would we link them into the sequence, say, either the what or why? I'm not going to go even to how to support children through the creativity, through creating, because when you support children through creating, of their own text, you can still recreate the what and why by simply saying, okay, so we're doing posters, and you can give them more examples, and then you do focus things that respond to their particular questions at the particular moment when they are creating. But if we were to look at these outcomes, say, understand that people use different systems of communication to cater to different needs. Okay, so haven't we covered that just now?
Yeah.
I think we have. Understand that people use different systems of communication, so different tools like rhyme, for different purposes. That's how I read it, different needs, for different purposes. Rhyme might be too lengthy, might be, what did you say? You had a different reason. I had too lengthy and you had, I don't know, clarity.
Yeah.
Hey?
They might not be as serious.
Whatever. and that many people may use sign systems to communicate with one another. Exactly, the very idea that the poster is a way to actually leave a message for other people. So, we can create posters and other things in class for the school. Don't walk on grass. How can we make it nice and funny? Right? The posters are for communication. And, this week we just put up, in this project we will put up posters that will be hanging around the school for a while, not for too long, but for some time. So posters, for example, exactly. People. So it's not about we're gonna create poster this week and then we introduce to them poster. It's about exploring tools for their purposes and making it evident to children that these tools pass messages. And as a result of it, this is very important, we create literacy-rich environment. And what I mean by that is that it's not what we put up on the walls in classroom. We have just sensitized the children that if they see a poster, they see it as a tool of communication. So their own particular private world becomes literacy rich. Do you see the point? It's not what's on the walls in the classroom, it's what's in children's heads. Can they see the communicative value of those literacy tools? And when we actually say one way or another, we say, look at this. Posters do serve a purpose. Okay, so we've done that. The next one. Understand that language is used in combination with other means of communication. Can you think of some combination, Emily?
Yeah, like waving when you're saying hello.
Like what?
Using body language while you're talking, so waving at the same time as you're saying hello.
But also the picture. The poster very often comes with a drawing, with a graph, with a picture. And then when you actually integrate, and that's what you do when you do the how. So the why first is that the why is the lesson where children get sensitized that the poster serves as a communication or any other form of text. And then when they do how, then we look for elements. What makes it a tool for communication? Not what it consists of, but the question is, what makes it a tool of communication? A picture and the words. Why do we have a picture and the words? Why can't we have just one? And all of this sensitizes children, but unless they have both, they're not strong enough. The message is not complete. Sometimes the picture and the words reinforce one another. They're not just an explanation. They're actually one sentence when they are together. And you have facial expressions, gestures to interact. That's right. That's exactly the point. So there's all kinds of contextual information. But when I was thinking of the poster, and also when you do the how, analyze the place of the picture in relation to the text. We do all of that as adults. We do all that analysis in a split of a second. But for children, it's an unknown. And some of them get it through other experiences through their life, but some people don't put it together that there is a reason why this thing is somewhere and another thing is what's the proximity between the picture and the words? What's the size? What are the colors? The colors are great because the point really is here, the more we complexify and the more elements we look for in those texts, the more we facilitate, we enable students who have difficulties in organizing information, we are becoming more helpful because we're giving them more tools. So a dyslexic person, when we just say to them, can't you see the U, can't you see the U in understand? And they go, yeah, I can, but I can't put it together with the N and D. But when we bring more systems into play, then they have more tools, and God knows how their mind will wire it together in order for good things to happen. I mean, at the end of the day, people like, what's his name, Bill Gates or whoever else is there, do read. The guy who owns Virgin Blue, I believe that he does read, and he was dyslexic, or still is maybe. So their brains somehow overcome it. But again, it's not about simplifying. What we do by giving them opportunities to reach for more tools, we enable it for them to simplify it for themselves. If we simplify it for them by limiting the range of tools, we actually make it for them more difficult by giving them more tools so that they can organize and reorganize. The distance matters. The letters are green because it's about a poster about the world being green. There is no picture here in this poster as opposed to the other poster because the person who drew it says that we no longer have a green world. So the whole poster is brown or black, right? It just gives them tools to connect the networks, and the brain does it in an unpredictable way. So the more tools we give them, the more opportunities we give them to simplify it for themselves. At the end of the day, they create the meaning, they have to understand, they have to make sense out of it. So the more tools we give them, the more chances we give them to actually play with more and simplify it as a result for themselves. So the next one, understand that there are ways of asking for information, making offers, and giving commands. You see how all these outcomes are exploratory? Very often the point is missed by teachers. Teachers think, okay, today we do posters, tomorrow we will do the book, the next day we will do something else, then we do requests, then we do the military. Nothing like that. It is about exploration and comparing and contrasting. There are different ways of asking for information. So when we do, why people do the posters? Why don't they just stand on the corner of the street and say, listen, save water. So every time you go past one corner, one person pulls you by your sleeve and says, save water, save water. Another person on another corner says to you, recycle. There are ways of doing this, right? So there are different ways for either asking for information or actually making requests. Could be poster, could be a poem. The other day I was watching an extraordinary lecture online. It is called The Noble Lie. And the guy, a professor from university somewhere, University of Southern California, created a story and gave a lecture in the form of a story. And so he used that for whatever purposes that he needed it. And he felt that that sort of genre would have done the best justice to the purpose of his lecture. So it's again exploratory in the why, because we don't want people on the street. We can do it in a more efficient way. And how? By posters, through pictures on posters, through poems, through evenings, when we have poetry evenings, through movies. There are many different ways. Explore, even they use the word in the curriculum, they can't help themselves, and they say explore different ways, so it's the next outcome. Explore different ways of expressing emotions. So what would be different ways? I actually will show you. I don't know whether I still kept it on my see how it got copied here. I don't think it got preserved though. There's a website called Literary Devices. Literary Devices. I've got it, I think, loaded. No, I don't. Anyway, Literary Devices. And it has different devices identified for showing to children how they can enhance the effect. So one of the devices that I stumbled on was the anaphor. And the anaphor is, I'm not sure whether you know, but it's by repeating something. So for example, you can think of a serious thing like an anthem, and also funny thing like a nursery rhymes. They will have it like, this country with this tree was born in this garden, in the house where I live. Or I don't know, so they're repeating something. This country, this nation, and these people. It's us. So these sort of repetitious things, they create emotional effect. You could create, I'm sure these things are used in nursery rhymes. You could have a rhythm added by these anaphors. The chicken did this, the chicken ran, the chicken did, the chicken blah, the chicken blah, the chicken blah, the chicken blah, the chicken blah. Right? It's all about the chicken and creates funny atmosphere. So there are different ways, different tools, literary tools of actually expressing emotions. And these things are in children's stories, in nursery rhymes, and so on. And by finding them there and showing to children, you can find a moment and you can say to children in lesson 4, where we actually start reading something together even, whether it's through iPads in groups where children click on things, but once, or even if you want to, by the teacher, which I'm least in favor of, but if you must, once children played with the chicken did this, the chicken did that, the chicken did that, and the chicken did that. They are so funny. You got them so going. You have the momentum going. They can actually, with great interest, point to a book and they want to read this book, so that and you can then actually use those literary devices that you are teaching them to increase their interest in the book, in appreciating the book, and also you teach them particular ways in which they can themselves use those devices in their own text when they create them.